All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, my guest is right here with me, Vanessa Phala. She's the director of ILO Country Office for Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, and the liaison office for ECOWAS. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
Welcome to the program, Vanessa, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. Now, let's get started. Liaison office for ECOWAS, what do you do? You're the country director for Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone. Which other country? Liberia. That's a lot of work,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
So you like hobnob around these West African countries?
Correct. So it's quite a comprehensive responsibility covering the 4 countries and being the office liaison for ECOWAS. So my role as the director is to support our constituents on the ground, our tripartite constituents, and this will be the government represented by the Ministry of Labor and Employment and social partners. So this would be your workers' organizations and the employers' organizations in the 4 countries. And really our aim is to promote social dialogue and do that through decent work or promoting the decent work agenda.
Now, in your 2 years in Nigeria so far, what would you say has been your experience working in Nigeria as well as coordinating other offices in ECOWAS and these other West African countries that we almost share the same, values, the same, almost heritage, that we do have things in common. What would you say is the common thing that holds us together as West Africans, the common thing that holds us together as West Africans, and the most common challenge around work, around decent employment and all of that? What have you seen that is the same in almost all the countries?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I've been here now for almost 2 years and I love it. I love being in Nigeria, and I've also had the opportunity to visit the countries that I cover as well. And so far it's been a very pleasant experience. I would say for me what comes out is the main thing that is common, at least in these countries, has to do with resilience. I think West Africa as a whole is very resilient. And in terms of the challenges, of course, even though they may not be so peculiar to West Africa or to Nigeria, but these are common challenges around the world. But of course, issues around, the economic outlook, issues around youth unemployment, issues around poverty, it's for me what stands out as the main challenges. And of course, they are quite multifaceted approaches to deal with some of these issues. And this is where my role as the liaison office also for ECOWAS to try and work with.
Okay, let's come back home a bit. Oh, you were home already in Nigeria. What is ILO's, International Labour Organization's analysis of the work and employment situation in Nigeria? Earlier on during my intro, unemployment rate in Nigeria stands at 33.3%. That's the national rate. Of course, we have the youth unemployment rate. We also have underemployment. You see a lot of school graduates do not have matching job opportunities. What is the ILO's assessment of our employment situation in the country?
Definitely in terms of the assessment and also from the global perspective, as you are aware, the ILO just released the Employment and Social Outlook report on Monday, and that provides that outlook at the global level. And really the picture is not as positive, because the outlook says for the year 2023, we are expected to see a 1% increase in terms of employment, which is less than half the percentage from the previous year. And there are quite a number of diverse reasons for this increase, or for this little increase. For Nigeria also, the outlook is quite similar. You spoke about the issue of unemployment, the issue of youth unemployment, and for us as the ILO, we've been doing quite a lot of work in terms of addressing issues of youth unemployment. We worked with the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development in 2021. We also launched what we call the Nigeria Youth Employment Action Plan. Okay. And that action plan, and for us as the ILO, our role in terms of promoting a regulatory framework or legislative and policy framework to be able to deliver the decent work results on the ground. That for us is very important. So that action plan, it is what we are using as a blueprint, as our roadmap to be able to drive issues of youth employment. The action plan speaks to 4 issues: issues of employability, employment, entrepreneurship, equity and rights. And with the ministry, we've also been able to have conversations and dialogue, even at the state level, to see how the states begin to articulate that plan into their own action plan so that we can have a much more coordinated effort of dealing with issues of unemployment, youth unemployment for that matter.
Okay, let's stick here a bit for those youth youth employment or youth unemployment, because that is also one area that I know that it hits a lot of people, especially for employers, where you have your 4 E's, which you've mentioned earlier, employability, entrepreneurship, and what have you. Out of these indicators, which one do you think are we most challenging? I'm speaking as an employer now. From what I have found out, and from some other employers too that I've interacted with, one of the challenges that we're facing as employers is the employability of our young people.
Correct.
You know that, okay, I mentioned earlier that you have school graduates, but they do not have matching job opportunities. But when you see the school graduates, what you think they are supposedly, or what they should know basically, they really do not know. When you employ them, you start training them, you know, afresh and all of that. Out of all the 4 E's, what do you think, you know, is Nigeria most challenged with?
I think when you look at the 4 E's, the challenge exists in all of them. And also for employers, as you say, the issue of employability is key. And this has to do with the demand for certain skills by the labor market and the supply of those skills by the institutions of higher learning. So that could also be that it means that our curriculum in the institutions of higher learning has not evolved in such a way that it addresses the labor market needs and demands. So there's an opportunity there to say, what are the drivers of employment? What are the key sectors that are driving employment? What kind of skills and competencies the labor market requires? And as institutions of higher learning, as education institutions, how then do we prepare these learners and pupils to be able to come out of the universities and technical colleges with some of the skills that are required? So I think that's where the issues around demand and supply, matching what is needed and what you are providing. The issue also of entrepreneurship, and I think for me that's where the opportunity is as well. As much as there may be a challenge, but there is a huge opportunity there. I think Nigeria has got a very, you know, vibrant youth that has skills and competencies to start up businesses and to become entrepreneurs. But of course, they need support. They need a regulatory environment that is conducive for them to be able to not only start a business, but maintain that business, because that's where you are going to drive employment, where you have small enterprises that are able to start businesses and support their businesses in such a way that they are able to contribute to employment. So there's quite a huge opportunity there. And when you look at where the opportunities are in terms of the sectors, the green economy is one of those sectors that could really give us the kind of jobs that we are looking for the current world of work and the future world of work. The other opportunities around the digital skills, you know, ICTs, you know, how do we then make sure that we are able to take advantage of some of these opportunities? Issues around equity and rights, I think when you look at the issues around informal economy and you look at the decent work deficits in the informal economy and issues around long working hours, some payments which are below the minimum wage, conditions of work, safety and health at work. So those are some of the challenges that I think, depending on where you're looking at as a policy maker, you will be able to propose the necessary interventions.
How is the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development? Because I know that it's that ministry that is driving the NYEAP, that's the youth is a long
Nigeria Youth
Youth
Employment
Employed Action Plan is too long. You know, it's the ministry that is supposed to drive the coordination framework for the implementation of this plan. What's your assessment of it? Because it's a whole lot. We've just talked about the 4 E's: employability, entrepreneurship development, we have employment creation, we have also equal opportunity. What is the ILO seeing, especially as to how we can implement this to get, results?
The most important thing is coordination. Coordination at the interministerial level, coordination at the different stakeholder level. So it's not only a responsibility of one ministry or one organization or one MDA, but it requires a coordinated effort. And I think if we are able to get that right, we will be able to change the narrative. We will be able to journey and tell a story that is much more positive. The relationship and the working relationship with the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development has been very productive. I think they've been quite committed in the cause. As I said, the development of the action plan has been through the leadership of the minister. We are also currently reviewing the National Employment Policy of 2017.
Okay. We'll come back to that, but let's quickly take this break. Of course, it's a political season here in Nigeria, so we just have to take a break a few times. Let's quickly go to Enugu now, where the governor-elect, Peter Mba, is having a press conference. We'll be back in about a few minutes, and we'll continue this discussion with the ILO country director, Vanessa Phala.
Victory could not have been won except for God, with the active support of you, the people of Enugu State. While extending my gratitude to you, permit me to appreciate the current governor of our state and members of his cabinet, statesmen and party leaders, security operatives, religious leaders, civil society groups, and everyone who made this a reality. Like every electoral process, the journey of the last few months was intense. The one of the last 3 days was even fiercer. Enugu was literally at the standstill, waiting with bated breath for justice to take its course. There was restiveness in our youth and apprehension in the minds of the entire Enugu. The fear was that there could be miscarriage of justice. On the street of Enugu, you could feel the palpable air of an overheated police brought by the prolonged, tortuous road to justice of the last 72 hours. Let me salute the dogged resolve of the people of Enugu State. I must particularly single out the patriotic men and women who, inside rain and skill-pelting sunshine, chose to occupy the INEC office in the last 72 hours. Their resolute resolve pointed at one single cause, that they are in a hurry for Enugu to connect with all the lofty goals that our administration is bringing to bear in our dear state. Let me restate that ours will not be a government of any section of Enugu State. It is your government, Enugu. Under our administration, there can never be a division between Soka and Nkanu or any other section of our state. were all brothers and sisters. Those who attempted to create a wedge between us failed woefully. We were massively voted by every section of the state. Those who wanted to smack our heads together had an ulterior motive, and it was to create perpetual fusing and fighting between us. We resisted them, and today we're coming together stronger. Our resolve thereafter is to pursue the spirit of divisiveness from our state. Since the electioneering process began, though the road was rough, it was obvious that we were not alone on the rough road. At every intersection of the rough road, Ndi Enugu were with us. Collectively, we trudged along with bravery and strength of character. Your presence shielded us from the rough tackles that were aimed at our spine. It is why you, Ndi Enugu, are the hero of this victory. You sowed your sweat and prolonged discomfort that earned us this victory. In the hot and torrid sun, you were with us. When the rain, literally and metaphorically, drenched us, you stood by us, offering your clothes to damp our wet apparel. And when it was time to stand and be counted with your vote, Ndi Enugu, you did not let us down. The choice you made is clear. You did not go through all those grueling moments for the sake of the fleeting berries of today. You made a huge investment for your tomorrow, for the tomorrow of your children and children's children. You chose to deprive yourselves of the perishable and glittering rewards of now so that greater tomorrow can come. In choosing us, you did not allow mundane reasons to stop you. You abandoned political party divides, religious denomination cleavages, clan and tribe. All you demanded was the candidate who could guarantee tomorrow for you and generation of Enugu to come. Now, Ndi Enugu, that tomorrow is here. Let me pledge to you once again that I will serve you and dedicate every of the 1,460 days that make up this initial tenure of office to serving you. I will remember the coerced road you traveled to get us here. In reply, we will speak resoundingly with policies of government that will give you comfort and rest of mind. As I told you during my campaign, the administration we will run will bring joy to your heart. We will make you remember March 18, 2023 with a toothy smile. In infrastructure, health, tourism, education, and development of our state in general, we will run a government that you can be proud of. We're in a hurry to dualize Yababa, Ubogonike, Soka Road, build a monorail from Enugu to Nsukka, Udi, and Ogo, and construct a ring road to connect all the 17 local government areas of Enugu State. We're in a hurry to build a world-class theme park in Enugu. We're in a hurry to establish special economic zones in all the senatorial area. And we're also in a hurry to establish special agro-allied processing zone and industrial park in all our senatorial zones. We're in a hurry to unleash the tech talents in our young people and grow and nurture their interest in business and vocations skills. We shall build a school of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, an innovation incubation center, as well as a skill enhancement center in each of the 3 senatorial zones. Ours shall not be an administration by section of this state, I repeat. We shall run an all-inclusive government designed to provide an inclusive economic development for our dear state. As we bring water to all homes in Enugu metropolis in 180 days of our being sworn in, we shall bring water in the shortest possible time to Nsukka, Oji River, Udi, Ogo, and others too. We shall frontally confront the infrastructural deficit in all parts of the state, and no one will be left behind. Let me at this juncture call on everyone to join me in this task of chiseling a great tomorrow from the rock of its despondence today. In the elections that we ran, we're all winners. No one is a victor, nor is anyone vanquished. The task at hand transcends emotions, politics, and other mundane divides. It is why I extend my hands of fellowship to all my colleagues with whom I ran the gubernatorial election. Our dear state is greater than all of us. Let us come together and give our people a tomorrow that befits their hard work, industry, and ancestry of greatness. Once again, Enugu, I thank you for reposing your trust in me. Together, tomorrow is here. Thank you. Okay, I think we're done.
All right, welcome back here to our Abuja studio. You've just heard Peter Mbah, the governor-elect of Enugu State, giving his acceptance speech there and calling on all stakeholders to join him there. I still have my guests right here in the studio before we went over to Enugu. Vanessa Phala is the director of the International Labour Organization for Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Liaison Office for ECOWAS. Okay, you were talking about the action plan. You were talking about Nigeria's employment policy. I will come to that later in just a few minutes. But I really want to know this action, the youth action plan. Let's talk about it a bit because I also do understand that the funds are meant to come out from the budgetary resources mobilized, you know, from stakeholders. Isn't that a challenge as to getting the action plan to be a success?
It's always it's always a challenge to mobilize resource, but when you have a framework that guides your interventions, I think the coordination of that resource mobilization becomes even much more effective. As the ILO, of course, we have our role in terms of, you know, mobilizing resources to support the legislative framework, and you also have other partners even outside of the UN with the responsibility to supporting the implementation of the action plan. But also the government has a responsibility to make resources available in order to create working opportunities for young persons. And the private sector as well has a responsibility to open up their spaces and allow young persons out of universities to really come and acquire the experience and the skills, practical skills, so to speak. So everybody has a role, and resources alone should not be an impediment to actually even doing what is within our means to see this action plan implemented.
Okay, let's move over to the employment policy implementation. How is the ILO collaborating with the Ministry of Labour and Employment to promote, you know, quality job creation?
Yeah. So the Ministry of Labour and Employment in Nigeria is actually our focal ministry for the ILO in the many countries that we work with. We've been working with the ministry in many different areas. Currently, actually, we are finalizing what we call the Decent Work Country program, and that is the program that provides a framework for technical support by the ILO to country. And that country, the Decent Work Country program, has priorities that the ministry and social partners have jointly identified, which will then be able to deliver the decent work results that we want to see. And issues of employment and sustainable enterprises are one of the priorities that are included in that program.
Okay, still talking about that, because I know that the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, has come out to say that the federal government is committing to creating 21 million full-time jobs and getting 35 million people out of poverty by 2030. Have it also in mind that this current president did mention some, I think in 2019, also that his intention is to get out 100 million people out of poverty. His minister is saying we will create 21 million full-time jobs. What does the ILO understand by that statement? And this is an administration that will be winding down in the next 2 months or 3 months or so. Can we really measure up? And full-time, what is full-time here? Where the country is really plagued right now in terms of people don't even have jobs, then people don't have decent work, and people don't have jobs that match their qualifications.
Yeah, I think the understanding from the ILO, first of all, from those kind of commitments is the leadership and the commitment at the highest level to be able to address issues of unemployment first and foremost, but also the commitments towards the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. It's also another positive step that actually says this is an administration that has a commitment but also is interested and concerned about issues of unemployment. As I said, we work with the ministry, and when you talk about full-time employment, decent employment, for us, a decent job is a job where you have access to fundamental rights and principles that work, right? Where you work within stipulated by law hours of work, where you are paid a salary that is not below that of the minimum wage, where you are able also to have dialogue to discuss issues of interest and issues that affect you as an employee or a worker at an enterprise. So for us working with the Ministry of Labour and Employment, as I said, we've worked through different interventions, from labor migration to child labor, to issues around just transitioning. So it has been a very collaborative, I may say, kind of interaction.
Do you think that the cost of living crisis that Nigerians are facing and the rest of the world right now, but let's stipulate it to Nigeria and perhaps other African countries that you cover, do you think that the cost of living crisis will inhibit the SDG Goal 8, which is decent work and economic growth, I guess? Do you think it will inhibit that? And if it will, how?
Definitely. Of course, the cost of living, when you look at its impact and the progress, on the other hand, in terms of achieving the sustainable goals, you can see that there's a direct impact there. Let's take the issue of child labor for an example. There's a commitment under SDG 8.7 in terms of the interventions that must be in place to reduce child labor. But when you're looking at the figures now, and this commitment is for 2025, we are in 2023. When you look at the latest statistics regarding child labor, you see that we are actually regressing. We're having even more and more children trapped in child labor. Then how then are we going to achieve that goal for 2025? And as we say, it will require a much more expedited effort from everybody. It will require more than just talk, but a bit more action in terms of, trying to address some of those specific targets.
Okay, let's talk a bit about child labor since you've come there. How serious is child labor in Nigeria? I was looking at the statistics, I don't know if it has changed, that about 14 million children between the ages of 5 and 14 or 17, informed in one form of economic activity or the other. Hawking, let's just call it in simple terms. Those that are supposed to be in school, about 14 million of them in Nigeria. When I saw that statistic,
Yeah.
Speak to me more about that.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work in child labor, on child labor in Nigeria through our ASEL Africa project, which is accelerated action on the elimination of child labor, particularly looking at key supply chains. So for Nigeria, we were looking at cocoa in Ondo and artisanal small-scale mining in Niger State. The figures that you are quoting probably from the last child labor survey that was done, which is over 20 years ago.
Okay.
But I'm happy to announce that we, on Monday, Tuesday this week, we validated a new child labor survey that we just conducted with the National Bureau of Statistics.
So
yes, we will be launching that report very soon. But I can assure you and I can tell you that from the report, the numbers
Is it looking better?
No, it's not looking better. We are seeing more children involved in
It's not looking better than the 14 million?
No.
Wow.
So, but I think, and it's good that we are able to collect the statistics because it is out of data that we are able to make the right
Good
kind
policies,
of policies to be able to intervene based on facts on the ground. And there are a lot of different drivers of child labor. And I also want to recognize the impact of COVID-19 as well, where you had a lot of families and a lot of caregivers losing jobs and not being able to provide for their families, where children had to drop out of school because they could not continue being at school, and therefore some of those challenges driving even more and more children in child labor. So there's opportunities for us to really turn the tide and change the narrative, and we have begun to do that. In the 2 states, the 3 states that we are working on, we were able to even return over 1,400 children back to school in Ondo, in Oshun, and in Niger. We were able to even renovate 2 primary schools in the 2 different states to create a conducive environment for these children to want to learn and to want to be in school. But the fight against child labor, the elimination of child labor, requires the involvement of the communities themselves, the involvement of the parents themselves, and the involvement of the teachers.
If you say you want to really eliminate child labor may happen because the parents are not economically empowered to send their children to school, to give their children free school meals and all of that. What kind of model are we looking at? Because if the parents are not satisfied and economically empowered, they will send all their children out for one form of economic activity or the other.
Correct. There's a direct relationship, there's a direct link between poverty and child labor. And what we have done, and we hope with more resources we'll be able to scale it up into other states in Nigeria. We have worked with parents and caregivers of the children in the community where we are implementing this project. And what we have done is to provide skills development training to the parents so that they can start businesses. But not only that, to even provide some startup equipment for them to be able to actually do something and start up businesses. I was in Akure last year where we actually gave out some of this equipment for hairdressing, sewing machines, farming equipment, barber equipment.
How about ICT skills, or is it just hard skills too?
Well, not really. The ICTs, as I said, is also very critical. But of course, you know, you need some foundation to be able to equip yourself with those kind of ICT skills. Once you have a business that you can actually generate an income from, and you can advance that business by using ICTs, putting your business on social media, selling online, and also it's a gradual progression. But I think the mere basic is important to be able to get somebody something to earn a living.
Now let's talk about, you have a program called SCORE. Is it the SCORE, Sustaining Competitive and
Yes, in Ghana.
Responsible Enterprise? Is it only in Ghana?
We implemented it in Ghana. Correct.
Okay, let's come back home. Let's leave Ghana for a while. Let's come back to Nigeria and talk about women. We've talked about youth.
Yes.
We also have, you know, youth across male and female, but let's specifically talk about women. Women, you know, are highly interested in becoming entrepreneurs, but they are also challenged, perhaps financial access. They also are challenged by society. Women are also challenged as to formalizing their businesses and growing it. What is the ILO doing in this regard around women? And let me also take a look at MSMEs, because I'm looking at our time too.
No problem. I will deal with both of them because they are they are of course related. First of all, in terms of what we are doing as far as women economic empowerment is concerned. And as I said, for us, the ILO, our interventions are always informed by an assessment and analysis so that we can be able to get the data to make the responsive interventions. Currently, we have conducted what we call a woman economic empowerment assessment, or a woman entrepreneurship development assessment, a WED assessment.
That's WED.
WED. And that is based on a global methodology for the ILO that we have implemented in several countries. We're working with Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, because they NECA, and they have a woman network within NECA that we are also working with. And out of the assessment, we are actually trying to identify what are some of the bottlenecks, what are some of the challenges that are impeding these women entrepreneurs to run sustainable enterprises, from policy level, from the institutional level. What are some of these institutions and structures that are in place to support women entrepreneurs? We're looking at it also from business development side of things, access to finance, even the small platforms. Are there platforms for women entrepreneurs to actually, dialogue and inform policy making? So that assessment we have done and we have validated, and we are in the process of developing an action plan that will begin to address some of those bottlenecks. On the issues around macro, medium, and small enterprises, we were fortunate to also have a joint collaboration as UN agencies, ILO, UN Women, UNIDO, and WHO. And this came out of the COVID-19, where we wanted to work with suppliers of PPEs in Nigeria to be able to address the demand. And we've identified about 174 MSMEs that we have supported from different interventions by the agency. For the ILO side, we have been able to provide training on different decent work areas, including occupational safety and health. We have also been able to match them and have conversation with financial service providers. And some of these women have, even out of this intervention, able to access loans which they could not have done in the past, to be able to buy more equipment and employ more people. Small, medium enterprises are the engine of economic growth for any country. Therefore, it is important that we create an enabling environment for them to thrive, because that's where most of the jobs are. So by that, we mean access to finance is important. Access to markets is also important, even markets outside of Nigeria, so that they are able to get the kind of revenue and build up their businesses.
The interventions you have, or the cooperation you have with the Nigerian government, is it only just technical, and is it only training that you give to perhaps, training interventions? Is there a monetary intervention from the ILO, perhaps through the ministries, the various ministries? Yes. And if there is, like how much? Give me an idea.
Well, the monetary, of course, ours is more around technical support. So we are a technical organization. However, we have also mobilized resources in order to implement specific interventions. We've worked with different development partners. We work with the European Union, GIZ, United States Department of Labor, the government of the Netherlands, who is actually supporting our child labor interventions, the Swiss Development Agency. So we have actually, managed to develop a very big portfolio of technical cooperation. If you look at our capacity, our staff in the Nigeria office, a lot of them are from technical cooperation, meaning implementing projects out of donor funding.
Okay, very quickly. I'm looking at the time over there. 1 minute. Let me roll this in. Is the ILO collaborating with other ministries in Nigeria apart from youth and youth and sport development and labor and productivity? You talked about green economy. What came to my mind? The Ministry of Environment. Do you have? Yes. Okay, so that answers that.
And Ministry of Mines for the work that we are doing with in child labor, and Ministry of Agriculture as well.
Then the federal government revealed plans in January that it's to launch a labor statistics system. I don't know if the ILO is involved in that.
Well,
what that means?
Yeah, what we are involved in is what we call the labor market information system, which is the information that able to tell us or to assess rather the labor market situation and be able to match employers with workers and the different skills that the employers and workers are require.
Okay, finally, 2 years in Nigeria. What do you love most about this country?
Food.
You did not even allow the question to land. Food. What food? Don't tell me jollof rice, please. What food?
Funny enough, it's more from the soup side.
From the soup side.
Egusi okra is my favorite.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Good one. Good one. Even though you're a South African, you know, but egusi and what? And okra. So it's just the food you love and fish pepper soup. Okay. Thank you very much.
And the music.
And
yes,
the music.
Food and the music.
And the music, isn't it? Okay, to be Friday tomorrow, so you can take, you can let your head down from tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. All right, I've been speaking with Vanessa Phala, who is the director, ILO Country Office. That's for Nigeria, for Ghana, for Liberia, for Sierra Leone, and the liaison office for ECOWAS. You also go to other countries?
Correct.
You do. Okay. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for joining us again. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji, signing out.